It's 9. We got a fearless small crowd today, but we're gonna roll with it because we got things to do. Happy Friday, 21st of October. It got here quickly. I just felt like it was October 1st yesterday. This month has flown by, but hey, I know Ted Creech will like this. National Pumpkin Cheesecake Day. Anyway, to those that like that, more power to you. Audra, she's chucking in. She loves that stuff. But it is also International Nacho Day. So, hey, this is, but anyway, there are not many other good days today. But I will say this, Sunday, y'all take note, Sunday, the 23rd, it was 21 years ago Sunday that they launched the iPod. Think about how phenomenally successful that launch was, but more importantly, the technology changes that have occurred in 21 years. It's amazing. So anyway, I thought about my first iPod and the big screen and the little revolving little thing, and how much easier it is today. Wow. Anyway, big time national news. There's not much. It's just election fever. So a lot of crazy stuff. We're about 10 days away from the Fed meeting, and they're talking about another 3/4 point uptick in interest rates. So that'll be a lot of the discussion next week, and I'm sure that'll impact a little bit of stock prices. But everybody knows before midterm elections, stock prices are up and down, up and down, up and down, and a lot of that came from varying returns this week and last week. A lot of companies seeing profits, some are not reaching profit, some are sales are down, but earnings are up, and they're still seeing stock prices drop. So y'all hang on, the end is near. Let's talk about state news, because rarely we get more state news than we get national news. But this is a technical term, what a hell of a week for economic development in South Carolina. Kudos to the fine folks in the upstate. $1.7 billion for BMW. That is phenomenal. And if you caught the papers today, there's going to be a battery. This project's been floating around for a long time, but the Post and Courier reported that a battery plant's going to Florence, which is a $2 billion investment with about 1,300 jobs. They were looking here. I've heard that project name for a while floating around. So they're also looking at another facility somewhere around Berkeley County for a battery. What is it called? But they're going to recycle batteries down in the low country, I think. But that has not been announced, but that's on the horizon too. So, but just in 2 projects, getting $3.7 billion is tremendous. And let me tell you, whether that's in Berkeley County, Florence County, Spartanburg County, it doesn't matter. It all helps South Carolina. And so that's a great win for us. It's a big win for the port, because all these projects wouldn't come if we didn't have access to the deep water and the port of Charleston. So the good news is that rail spur that they're going to, that they're building a high-tech rail system right as we speak. And hopefully that should be complete by 2025, I think. But that should take about 48,000 loads off of the interstates. That's 48,000 tractor trailers off the roads, which will certainly help TED and DOT and everybody else on easing congestion. So we're looking forward to that happen. But let me tell you, good news around the state, and we'll take it, even though it's not here in the Midlands. Things were coming. We got to be patient. But also on the local. But before I forget that, let me just put into context: 1.7 and $2 billion. The largest investment for a long time in the early 2000s was the Bridgestone Firestone at 1.2. Then GT came in like at 1.1, they're 1.3 or something like that. So tire companies have high capital costs. So they were huge. But this is another stratosphere, and we're seeing this around the country right now. These battery company, Ford is putting $5 billion right outside of Memphis. Another battery is putting $3 to $5 billion in North Carolina. So hopefully we'll see more of that. But these projects keep getting bigger, and it is amazing that just I can't fathom that much money going into investment in property. So anyway, we're fortunate. We do have a mega site close by. We have a mega site in which a mega site is deemed by Commerce as one that has infrastructure there. It may not be site ready, but they have access to rail, and they have access to power and water and sewer and all that stuff. And it's got to be over, I think it's 1,200 acres to meet the mega site criteria. But we have one in Fairfield County. We don't have one in Richland, and but there were, in fact, Fairfield at one time was the only one. I think they're building one in Lawrence now and a couple others. But our time will come. But these projects are just massive. But on a local level, we had a good week with announcements. Richland County finally approved the incentives for the Richland Fashion Mall to be a mixed use. And that has been prime property for investment. The problem is a couple things. Taxes in that building is not sound, and some of it just needs to be torn down. But if anybody's ever torn down anything and had to take concrete to a landfill, it's expensive. And so to add that to the cost of taxes and everything else, it would have been the project didn't make sense. And so they needed incentives, and they got it from the city and the county. So I have not seen any drawings. I know it's going to be mixed use, but I'm excited about that project. Two others were talked about this week. The old Colite facility over in West Columbia is three blocks, and that's going to be turned into a tech hub called Colite City. And it's a creative and entrepreneurial hub. That's going to be great. And I think really kudos to the developers that have done Flow and a few other projects around town. But I think that's a great marketplace. I was asked if we had too many these concentrations, and I don't think so. I think the market can bear it. People like trendy areas, and I think West Cola is by far the trendiest spots. I think also Cottontown and Upper Main is a trendy spot as well. So kudos for them. I think we'll see how long that takes to develop and how long the build out is going to be, but I really am excited about that. And so between that and Rosewood development, more development by Case and development crew on Forest Drive. They're remodeling a building over on Bull Street. So lots of good stuff's happening, which is good to see. So let's see, next thing on the list, what's else going on? Thank you, USC and Georgia Tech, for going to Kershaw County and figuring out why in the hell we're having this many earthquakes. So we look forward to reporting back on what's causing that. I've heard some interesting reports on lack of water, maybe some of the mining in Upper Kershaw County. Who knows? We'll figure that out. All right. Before I turn it over to y'all, I got some questions for you. But as we look out for the weekend, the weather is terrific. It is perfect fall weather. For those that like the pumpkin stuff, you can go out, get your pumpkin stuff. But like a blue moon or a comet that comes around, we got football and fair this weekend. And we have a anti-cruelty by police rally at the State House tomorrow. So the fort has sent out a press release urging people in the services not to, or stay away, not to be confused with law enforcement folks. But anyway, we got a lot going on downtown this weekend. So if you're going to the fair, go early. If you're going to the football game, go late or whatever. It's not going to happen, but it's going to be a fun weekend around town to do lots of things. So as we talk about economic development, I'm curious from y'all, what are you seeing? And we're thinking about our public policy agenda for next year. We've met with the state chamber about their public policy agenda. What are y'all seeing in your business that would help us. But what are you seeing that's impeding your ability to do business? Whether it's insurance, whether it's taxes, whether it's business license, whether it's some other regulatory issue that y'all are seeing that's just a thorn in your side. If you're seeing something, I'd love to hear about it, because we're trying to work on developing an agenda, and it only helps if we're helping you. So if there are things that y'all are hearing, feel free to fire away, or y'all always know how to get in touch with me, but would love to hear your thoughts.
Carl, we discussed this before, but our school taxes are one of the highest in South Carolina.
No doubt about it. It is very, 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 very high. Yes. All right, I'm keeping notes here.
Carl, I'll tell you that in our discussions around the state, and we kind of expected it because we had been hearing it, especially in the last 6 months, 6 to 8 months, is that insurance is absolutely an issue, liability insurance, because of how our state's structured. We have a lot of smaller businesses on the restaurant side that are not even able to afford the premiums any longer. We're losing a lot of carriers in the state that will not write, because in our industry, our minimum is $1 million, and then they know how joint and several works, and they could end up being the deep pocket even in a minimal contribution to whatever's being sued. So it was slow at first, and now, like I said, in about the last 6 months, we've seen it escalate pretty significantly. And a lot of people don't realize that it's affecting, things other than just someone who's serving alcohol or things like that. It has come into the hotel side of our business. A lot of our allied members are seeing it from some of the people that they work with. And it's going to affect individual families as well. We could easily be a deep pocket after an event at our homes or something like that, where an accident happens. So it's really just got to be addressed. We have heard from some of our partners that competing states are using it as an economic development con for South Carolina. They'll actually say to the business, if you're looking at both our states, have you looked at the insurance situation in South Carolina? So that's what we're hearing consistently, and it's escalating.
Well, that stemmed from a Supreme Court case back in 2019, and then COVID hit. Insurance carriers didn't catch it, and then they caught it, and all this actually came out of the tort reform legislation in 2006. And it took that long for a case to come through the Supreme Court, but there were two different statutes, conflicting statutes on the book. And so the Supreme Court threw the whole statute, both of them, out because of the inconsistencies. And so basically, juries are not afforded the knowledge of who's settled in a case. Therefore, correct, from a joint several liability, if I am liable for an accident, but really it's only 25% of my responsibility, instead of me paying 25%, I could actually be held liable for the entire package. And so we're seeing that play out in the Murdoch case and the boat accident. It was a big one that's gotten a lot of attention over the last couple of years. But anybody that has liability insurance for events is seeing it. We're seeing it. We saw a significant increase in our insurance liability cases, our coverage in South Carolina, just because of a chamber, and we hold events. So it's trade associations, it's restaurants, any hospitality industry is seeing significant increases. We just have a problem in South Carolina with business versus trial lawyers at the State House. And it's the OK Corral every year, it seems like. And it depends who's in leadership positions. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn or saying something that people don't already know. We got word that if this issue wasn't on the House Republican caucus's priority list, that we probably wouldn't get to talk about it much in this upcoming session. And then we, in turn heard from them that they felt like it might be a moot point if it was going to be blocked, and there's kind of one person over one committee that's blocking any discussion on the Senate side. So it's really important. Like I said, we're trying to educate our members that this isn't just a restaurant issue. It's contractors, it's truckers, it's just anybody really that's exposed to the public regularly. And you brought up a good point about associations and chambers with all the events that we do. And you know, it's something's got to give. I mean, it's not going to get better without being addressed. So
yeah, it is a hindrance to doing business in South Carolina, no doubt about it. But it is a statewide issue. We got to get our legislators on board and recognize that it's bigger than one person. But there's
Right.
the old saying, elections have consequences. And so anyway, this is where business has got to step up a little bit more than what they have and be very proactive in making the culture right or soil conditions right for business. So anyway, good. That is on our top of our list. And we had on there last year, and we knew it was going to be a tough fight last year. It's going to be even tougher this year. So anybody else got an issue like that that's just causing heartburn? Or maybe not causing heartburn, but would make life easier? All right. Well, what's on your mind? What do we need to know? Anybody got something about your organization? I saw Mark put an email, something in the chat box.
Yeah, I was just going to let everybody know this. We're at the Salvation Army. We're still accepting applications for our Angel Tree assistance. So if you got folks who have kids, you know, less than 12 and under, they can go to saangeltree.org and then put that application on online. Don't have to worry about traveling into downtown Columbia to get that done. And all the distributions will again be at the state fairgrounds. And that those applications will be open the rest of October.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being on this morning, Mark.
Hey, Carl,
Yes, sir.
following up on the economic development announcements from a few days ago. Last week, the governor hosted an EV summit, electric vehicle summit up in Greenville. That was a half day followed by a full day of the National Governors Association hosting an EV summit at the same place. But at any rate, so there's a lot of, I guess, a lot of attention being applied to the electric vehicle industry in space, in addition to just from an economic development point of view. The governor issued an executive order that would call for three things. One would be a focus on business and economic development around electric vehicles. Another would be workforce development, which would be headed up by DO to make sure the state has a workforce that is ready for electric vehicle related jobs. And the third is electric vehicle infrastructure, kind of coordinated by SCDOT. And each state DOT, going back several months ago, each state DOT had to submit an electric vehicle infrastructure plan to the Federal Highway Administration in order and have that approved in order for monies from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, the big Infrastructure Act passed by Congress. For there's a portion of that that has to do with electric vehicle infrastructure. And so those monies with the South Carolina's approved plan, those monies can now flow into South Carolina to try to establish a stronger network of charging stations, particularly along rural portions of interstate, so that electric vehicle owners can be assured that they have access to a charging station. I think the national benchmark is at least every 50 miles. So a lot of activity surrounding all of that, and we're playing a little bit of a part in it. So,
Sorry, guys. Ted, that's good stuff. I didn't. I was familiar with the governor's stuff, but having the the national plan for deals. That's pretty smart because California adopted such crazy, was it 2035? They're going to have, they don't want any more gasoline engines.
Yeah, I'm not sure the year. I think it's 2035. You know, and so, but
We-
regardless, you know, from just a market demand perspective, I mean, you're seeing more, obviously more and more, you know, ads for electric vehicles. So starting to ramp up from that point of view.
And what we always, when I was trying to, when we were at the State House lobbying back in my previous life, we always use California as like, whatever they're doing, we don't want to do it. But if you really think about from a product development standpoint, they're a huge driver between, I think California and New York, it's 50% of the US GDP together. And so what they do and their buying power is significant. So it really will transform buying habits across the country if they do that, if they can follow through. The biggest issue is capacity. Are there enough charging stations? Can you get the battery life a little better? And will that price come down over a period of time with the improvement of all those? Because that's going to be the driver more than anything.
The electric
Price.
grid is huge in all of this. I mean,
Ask
the
Texas.
amount of electricity for the highest tier of charging station that can charge your vehicle in 20 minutes is significant. So how all that's, you know, done, how all it's paid for is a really several big questions there. So
Well, I think that's been the key for state governors and legislators around the country, how to use all these ARPA funds and these dollars to maximize future growth. And that's going to be one that we're going to have to watch and pay attention to, because that is significant. So good thoughts there, Ted. Thank you. All right, anybody else?
Can I say one more thing? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I don't mean to.
You're good.
This was a positive, I think. A couple of us were talking after the board meeting last week, and this is almost more of a question. I just wondered if anybody else in their businesses or associations or even the chamber is working with a particular tax expert on the remaining time we've got left to file the ERTC request. We signed on with a group that specializes in tax incentives and tax refunds and things almost always. It was before ERTC. And in fact, when they review our members, they look at everything, not just that one. And I mean, very quickly, after about 140 or so members that they dealt with, they found $14 million in refunds that they were qualifying for. And we found a lot of disinformation out there, a lot of people who were originally told they didn't qualify, but, you know, a lot of changes took place very quickly. So I just throw that out as a possibility of something that we as the chamber can still offer or point people to. And I have some really strong guidelines from our national partners about how to make sure it's not a fly by night, somebody trying to make a quick buck. Our guys will review your company and look at your situation at no fee. I mean, they certainly want you to work through them if they find you do have some qualifying terms, but it just seemed like it kind of slipped out of people's, you know, consciousness, and now they've got their idle loan interest and stuff coming due, so they're looking for money, and a few of them are quite surprised that their accountant told them they didn't qualify or didn't have any yet. My guys are reviewing it and saying, oh yeah, you do. So just throwing that out as something we might want to look at if you hadn't already.
I have been referring folks to bankers and to their CPA firms to do that. Brent, you probably get that asked sometimes. What do you advise folks?
We really try and ship them to the CPAs. They're better experts.
Yep.
Well, and that's what we were finding is the CPAs had told some people they didn't qualify, and you know, they just let us review it just kind of as because they were a member and said, well, yeah, I'll go through, you know, I'll let them look. And I mean, they're finding significant money. So
Hey, Anita, what do you think? Same with you?
I'm so far removed from that. I've not gotten any requests about that stuff, but anything having to do with taxes, we always send people to CPAs.
Yeah, smart.
Hey, Carl, I want to
Yes,
say
sir.
something. Nick Anon's usually on this call with Elliot Davis.
Yep.
I actually looked at them to do our ERCs or ERTCs. And then I actually was involved in an ACM call, which is basically a bunch of museum people talking. And this lady sent me a spreadsheet and I did, I think, 6 periods. You basically just can't get ERCs and PPP forgiveness during the periods. You can't have both.
Yes,
But
you
it can be
can.
done.
Yes,
Well,
you
that I
can.
did not know. That's good news. So maybe I can get more out there. But Susan, actually, let me get your contact info and take a look at that. Elliot Davis would do this stuff too. I mean, they looked at us and they said, yeah, you can get all this stuff. But yeah, if no one knows where to go, it's always good to do that. I do believe the time is running out, right, Susan?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I'd call Nick. Or your favorite CPA.
And again, I'm not trying to bash CPAs. I'm just saying that there are several companies out there that specialize in tax credits. And that was how they happened to be a member of ours and they came to us. And there are a couple of others. I mean, they're not the only ones. We went with them because they guaranteed their work. If you're ever questioned about it, they go to bat. They're insured. They are registered with the IRS. One of their head honchos is an ex-IRS guy. So they've been very, very successful with our members. I came on here and got the same comment that you just mentioned. Oh, we didn't apply for it because we got PPP. And I said, my understanding is you just have to account for that. You can still qualify for it. And sure enough, we got $43,000 and we got about 200 of PPP. So
You just got to be careful. I probably get 6 or 7 emails a day from somebody offering me the ability to get the credits. So you just got to, I send them, I do the healthy delete button every time, but y'all take it and
we
look
reviewed
at it.
them. Yeah, we
but
did our due diligence on these guys.
Make sure you do your due diligence when you get those emails or you talk to folks. So, all right, we're running out of time. Anybody else go to the cause? All right. Well, listen, y'all have a wonderful fall weekend. Enjoy, get out and get some vitamin D. If you're going to the fair, have fun. If you're going to the game, let's see if we can do 2 amazing games back to back. It'll be phenomenal. Hope so. But y'all be good. Thanks for joining with us today. Appreciate y'all's input. We'll see you next time. See you.
Have a good weekend.
You too.